We are over on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yay! We made it. There's Holly. She made it. Okay, how do I? Ooh, ooh. Can hear the background of my YouTube channel.
Ooh.
Ooh, happy Halloween.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, beauty. Who are you today?
I'm not sure what the package said, something like the Emerald Goddess or something. It was honestly what was available at the spirit store that wasn't like a slasher prison guard or something that I didn't.
But you look incredible.
Thank you. I'm going to my grandchildren to see them and then do play with them, but also do trick or treating with them and then a party immediately after. So I thought I'm going to have to get dressed now, even if it's weird. So,
Yeah, no, how fun. Well, I am
but
really,
Kay's dressed up.
yes, we have a witch. Serena's wearing ghosts on her
Yep.
dress.
Yes. And
Oh
you.
my gosh, that's adorable.
My little ghosties.
Aoife Mayo and I are just connecting with spirit in the best way since the veil is thin. I'm always excited when we get together. So thank you for making time for us to have this chat together today. Before we get into all of our Halloweeny stuff, I wanted to check in just to see how everyone has been experiencing these energies lately. Because I've been hearing that people have had, you know, whether it's like interesting synchronicities or more intuitive kind of experiences. Anything been happening for you all with the thinning of the veil? What about you, Rena? I know you said something too.
Yeah. So that I think is maybe because I've been practicing more too.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely noticing the thinning of the veil. Just when I've been practicing with like my psychic group, I've had a few experiences of pulling people through from the other side, unintentionally, like not meaning to, but just reading through, and then I'm like, oh, okay, these people have passed. So that's been interesting. Um, and then synchronicities have kicked up, messages have kicked up. I had a retreat last weekend and it was so funny because I have just had little tiny spiders that have been attracted to me and like giving me messages. And I was like, okay, I need to look up, and kind of feel out the message here because it was just interesting. I kept having all these spiders that would cross my path. I even had one run across my feet. I took a video. I had one that like went down on the string right in front of my face and just hung there. And I was like, okay, you can't like, this is crazy. Like, so it was just interesting. A lot of stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Very, and
fun
that's
stuff.
the thing too, is when we are in our presence and we're paying attention, it's interesting how like life does seem kind of magical because we just have these strange experiences. Yeah, Ethan Lyle, how about you? How have your energies been lately?
My mic on. Well, things have been, I guess, more intense, but not in a heavy way. It's
Yeah.
more light, and I've been, like you say, the synchronicities. Things are just like clicking, happening. I was out of town this past week and meeting some really interesting people. It's just been like people, it seemed like everybody was on the same wavelength or something.
Yeah.
And the conversation was just super easy. And then when somebody would start a topic, it's like, yeah, everybody was just kind of tuned in. And that's not that usual for me personally with a group of strangers. I'm kind of like a layback kind of person. But it was like I was drawn in more to uh, the people I was with because I went with some friends to this trip, but everybody else were complete strangers to me. And it just seemed like the people that I was supposed to connect with, it just was like an automatic draw. But also, I was noticing that I'm feeling things more deeply, much more deeply. It's like zingers. Yeah, I was in I just remembered I was with some people and we did like a sitting where we were just giving messages to each other. And that was another thing I don't usually do with strangers, but it just sort of came about. And I said, oh, okay. And it just seems like everything was just coming. It was like, boom, it was there, it was there. So it is an interesting time.
It is a very interesting time. It's interesting hearing you describe it the way that you have, because that's what I've noticed. It just feels like, I don't know, like a different texture of energy
Mhm.
recently. And yeah, it's been very interesting. How about you, Kay? The way,
I feel like things are like easy right now. I just feel very like in tune, and a lot of things that were kind of complicated before feel very like I have a lot of clarity around right now.
hmm
So that's pretty much it. Just like a lot of clarity and ease.
that's huge though.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
just feel nice.
It it's funny you say that too, because you think of like thinning of the veil, we usually just relate it to contact with the spirit realm,
Hmm.
but thinning of the veil could also be like a clarity of mind for us in so many ways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's really cool. How about you, Emerald Goddess?
um, I think I kind of reflect where Kay is at a lot also in that, the last few years have been a really big personal journey on a lot of different levels. And I felt sort of at a lot of times more like in the fog, if you will, or in the mist. And for me, my personal experience of life is like the mists are lifting, and I'm not looking at the same landscape it was before. And that's a me change. And it's like I'm not on the other side yet, but I can feel the shift, the release, like some of the pressure is feeling off. I mean, I guess it almost feels like maybe the last 3 years have been a liminal space for me.
Mm, yeah.
And I'm sort of focusing in again, which is kind of counter to what this time is, but that's what it feels like to me, almost like a sharpening up and a releasing of pressure that has been there for a number of years.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
It's
it feels good.
It does feel good. And you made me think of too, recently it's been coming up how we're in this universal year 9, which is like ending a cycle and a lot of review and a lot of, culmination of what have we learned and how are we moving forward. And we're coming up on this universal year 1, which is new beginnings and
Yeah.
very heavily focused on what it is we're aligned to, what we're attuning to, that type of thing. And that's what's been um, I would say more prominent for me in these last couple of months. I just feel like I've been guided differently, but in a great way. I
Yeah.
definitely have felt energy in a more palpable, a very different kind of way. So it's interesting just kind of observing what's going on. But I definitely feel like collectively something, something is shifting. Yeah. So I just want to let everyone who joins us know we were thinking about, coming together, and it can be hard for all of us in our schedules to meet at the same time. But we had a meeting maybe like a month ago, and we brought up Halloween. And it was very interesting how we all had these various experiences growing up with Halloween. Like even Ia, I remember you mentioning something in Ohio that none of us had heard of. We were like, what is she talking about? Right. But we all have these very different experiences with how we grew up and what Halloween was like. So I wanted to start out just talking about that, reminiscing a bit because, it seems to be a holiday for kids, but we can reminisce and have some fun too. So I wanted to start with you. Um, yeah, Ifamayo, if you could tell us a bit about what Halloween was like growing up for you in Ohio, but what was that day?
Well, I had to call my brother because it's been so long ago. I grew up doing Halloween in the 50s, right? And we had 3 days of Halloween festivities. And it was a time when the neighborhood I grew up in, and a lot of neighborhoods back then were people lived in the same neighborhood for generations, and so you literally knew everybody, and
Yeah.
everybody knew you. Um, and so we were allowed within certain parameters to roam the neighborhood, right? And so Halloween, the first night was what they call Beggar's Night or Penny Night, it became to be known. And so you would dress up, not a lot, just put on something different that you don't usually wear. It wasn't the whole full Halloween garb like we think of today. And you would go and you would knock on doors, or people would be sitting on their porch or their stoop, and you would go and they would give you pennies or they would give you little trinkets and things. And this was like just kids, mostly like elementary school age kids. We would go around. And now we were unaccompanied because it was pretty safe. And then the second night was called Damage Night, or and you would go out and you would do little mischievous things. That night was more for like middle school or even high school kids, but sometimes if you had older siblings, you got to tag along. And you would take soap and you may write on car windows or on house windows, or maybe you would, leave some paper in somebody's yard, or just little mischievous things,
Yeah.
nothing heavy duty, nothing malicious or anything like that. And we never tore up anybody's plants or anything like that. And then the third night was Halloween night, and that's where you got real dressed up. You would plan your costume all year and things like that. But we didn't have store-bought costumes. If the most you would have, if you most women sewed back in those days, and so the most you would do is your grandma or your mom would make you an outfit. But a lot of us would just create an outfit. You come up with a theme and you would make it yourself, whether you could sew or whether you would use glue or pins or whatever, but it was more homemade. And there weren't a lot of masks. You would use makeup on your face, but most you had like a, what do you call it? Like a bandit, and you'd cut
Uh-huh.
out the cloth and tie it behind your neck. And that was the most fun night. And you would use a pillowcase and you would go around, and everybody had candy out for the kids. And even if people weren't going to be home, they would leave a big bucket or something with candy and fruit and things like that out for the kids. And you would usually go in groups, like 3 or 4 kids to a group and that kind of thing. Again, unaccompanied. And I just remember it being so much fun. You look forward and you would make fun of each other's costumes, or what are you supposed to be? And a lot of the adults would dress up too when they're giving out the candy and fruit. We got a lot of fruit, not just candy. But it was a lot of fun. And I remember my brother, he also remembered, he says, I don't know, he didn't remember why we had 3 nights. But when I looked it up, trying to get a little more context, it was saying that it was almost like a festival type of
Oh,
atmosphere that it was more about during that time. And so I remember that taking place even after I outgrew that concept for myself. But then years later, when my son, he grew up, was born and raised in the same town I'm from. We didn't live in the same neighborhood, but our entire neighborhood was Halloween. It was bigger than Christmas
yeah.
in that particular neighborhood. Every house was decorated. Everybody had different themes, and even people would have their own haunted house set up and everything. And at that time, this would have been like in the 80s with my son. And but then you did accompany your children. You would stand at the corner and they could go up and down the block, but you were waiting at the corner or something like that, unless you were going to your friend's house. So but when I was a child, it was 3 nights and it was so much fun. You look for it. I remember one year I'll never forget. I was in the third grade and Halloween happened on a school night this year. And we had a teacher that gave us homework on Halloween. I couldn't believe it. It was like, she is so mean. Everybody was so upset. So, and that stuck in my mind. Why would you do that to kids? Have homework on Halloween. And so I always that memory came back to me as well.
That is so funny. It's interesting listening to you describe all of it because at first I was like, dang, we missed out. We only had one night. But it also made me think of how, with you saying how the neighborhood was so like everyone decorated the houses and this and this. it's really interesting you think about how communal of a holiday
Yeah.
Halloween really is, or at least used to be. Because, you know, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, these things,
Right.
it's more you and your family, but Halloween really is like the communal holiday.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
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 What about you, Kay? Where were
Could
you
I
like?
add just
Oh,
one
yes,
thing so
yes.
I don't, because I don't won't forget. In adulthood, there were a lot of families, and my in-laws family, they would have a masquerade party for
Ooh,
the adults. The kids weren't allowed to come. And so that's how they carried Halloween into their adulthood is that everybody had to dress up and you had a party. And it wasn't during the Halloween weekend. We usually did it like right after. So they kept it going. They didn't want to miss out on the fun.
I want to do that. I want to do it
I was thinking that
tonight.
too. I'm like, that sounds like fun.
That sounds like so much fun.
It
Yeah.
was. It was a They still do it after all these years. They still do have a masquerade party for the adults. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. I just thought of something else I want to ask you guys later. And then Kay, what was it like? What decade were you going trick or treating? Was it 90s?
Yeah, so mine was the 90s. And for me, I don't have a specific memory that sticks out just because every year I feel like was so fun. Um, it's just an exciting time. I think even back then we didn't really buy costumes either. We got usually creative, or my mom was pretty creative and helped us. Um, but it was fun. And in hindsight, with who I am now, I kind of realized like maybe it was more so like the energy around it, because I feel like people are more um, less guarded and curious about those kinds of things too around that time. So
Yeah.
in my adult life, celebrating looks a little different. Um, my sister and I in our 20s, my mom had two boys. So we had kids around again, little brothers. So for the last 10 years, we've been kind of celebrating with them and taking them trick or treating. But now that they're like in their teens, it's like, okay, what does that look like for me now?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of redefining that in my adulthood now. Like, what is Halloween for me now?
You know, you just made me wonder too, what kinds of costumes did you all choose?
Hmm.
You know, like were you the one that wanted to be scary or were you know, like what kind of costumes did you usually go for?
Mine were really like cutesy. I never did like the spooky, scary stuff, like, maybe a witch, if anything, but like a princess or like things like that, or characters that I liked, like Disney characters. Yeah.
Of course. Of course. One last thing though, in the 90s, did you have, and just to give context, like where Io was in Ohio, you were in California,
Hmm.
and it's different seasonally, you know, like I grew up on the East Coast and it was always cold at Halloween, whereas over here now it's like 70, 80 degrees. But did you all have parents or did you get to go out by yourself?
Um, yeah, we always had our parents accompany. So I don't ever remember going alone, but it sounds fun and cool to be able to do that. But no, always had our mom. So I think she enjoyed it too. So she just like kind of tagging along. So
Yeah.
hmm.
It's funny, I remember now because we all went out on our own. I was in the decade of the 80s trick or treating. I was born in late 70s. So in the 80s, no, we didn't have the parents. We were going around by ourselves. But then at the very end, sometimes my mom would have us all pile up in her car and then she would
Hmm.
take us to another neighborhood.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
a thing
yeah.
too. We would always like
Yes.
travel to different neighborhoods just
Yeah.
because some neighborhoods would like decorate a lot more intensely than our neighborhood. So it was
Yeah.
always fun to go see the big houses with all the cool things.
And the neighborhoods that had the better candy. That
Hmm.
was the thing. Like go where the good candy is. Yeah.
Right. Hmm.
That's so funny. What about you, Serena? What decade were you like in your Halloween heyday?
So 80s for me. And for me, more than the trick or treating, I really liked every year it was a time for my family to come together and we'd go to my auntie's. I came from a very large Portuguese family. So I was the youngest of the cousins, and I probably had like 30 cousins, 20 cousins, I don't know, something
Oh.
like. But they'd all come together and they had my Aunt Mary had a saloon with a pool table. And so I got to watch all my cousins and uncles shoot pool and hang out and, get to see all the costumes. And that was fun. And I used to always help my Aunt Mary every year with doing the decorations out in her yard. So we'd actually there was one year that we made the tombstones. So taking the styrofoam, spraying and all that, and that was fun. So yeah, it was fun. And then costume wise, my mom used to make all my costumes. In fact, my youngest got to wear one of them yesterday when she did trick or treating at speech and physical therapy.
Mm.
But it was like a little spaceship girl costume my mom had made. But I had like Rainbow Bright. I had like, it was just all these different ones. And then I did get a couple costumes I got to put together. One of my favorites was the Can Dancer because I always loved dancing when I was a kid. I went to be I don't know if you remember the show Solid Gold
Yes.
Dancer. I went to be a Solid Gold dancer. So that was a big
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And then the other thing was I loved being a mime, but everyone was mean to me when I was a mime. Everyone hated the mime, but I liked it. So I
That
liked
is so
communicating
funny.
without words was fun.
Solid Gold. Who was that puppet? Remember was her name Madam? Remember
I
the
can't,
puppet?
it's been so long. I just remember I loved the dancing and I used to stand next to the music thing and the speaker and the radio in the saloon, at my Aunt Mary's house. And I'd be sitting there doing the Running Man and the Kin Play and all these dances. I was always into dancing. And it's like now I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's just such a little dork. But yeah. So
It
yeah.
is really funny hearing this truly because I don't think I ever thought about how together Halloween was for all of us growing up. Um, Yeah, there was something you said I forgot now. Oh, a friend of mine, her mom was really crafty too and would make her the best costumes. And one year she made her Rainbow Bright and she just posted it on Facebook a couple days ago. But it was the best. I mean, I'm gonna send you the picture because it was her mom should have sold the costumes that she made. They were so insane. What about you, Holly?
First of all, kudos to anyone doing a Rainbow Bright costume based on my memory of that,
Yeah,
which would have been probably more in my children's era. That would be a complex pattern to create, I would
yeah.
think, to sew together. So I personally was trick or treating in the 60s and well, and into the 70s, maybe early, but I graduated in the early 70s from high school. So um, I was, really more just like, what's in the closet can we throw together to fashion something that is a costume? The whole thing of like, as I said in the beginning, like I went to the spirit store. It's like, the wide accessibility to all these costumes just wasn't available. It was either your parent making it or you pulled it together. I feel like in my family, my mom sewed a lot of our clothes, but I don't recall her ever sewing Halloween costumes. And I feel like we often went as, it probably isn't very politically correct to say these days, but as a hobo.
Hmm.
And it literally meant, did you too, even Lyle? Or, it's like going to your dad's closet and find a shirt, get a pair of his jeans that obviously were going to be way too big, maybe even clomp around in his shoes, and taking a cork and burning the end of it and, taking the charcoal end of it and putting it on your face like some sort of beard, facial hair, and then taking like the broom end off and you have a long stick and finding a bandana or scarf and putting that on the end to be like your little knapsack on a stick, and that's what you'd hold out to the people that they put your candy in,
Yeah.
aside from the classic pillowcase. And for me, my memory is like never doing a lot of planning on it until I was older. It was just more like, oh, it's Halloween, let's do this thing. And definitely out in the neighborhood. I don't remember if parents came with us or not, but I also have a big gap to my youngest sister. And so I feel like maybe in her generation, if you will, because she was much younger than the rest, the older three of us, they might have been walking with her.
Mm.
But it just felt like a whole gang, out on the
Yeah.
street, all the neighborhood kids just running around and having fun. And the really fun thing that we haven't really talked about yet is dumping the pillowcase or the knapsack on the floor, seeing what the loot was, what you liked, what you didn't, who got more of what. And then, see, I'm one of four siblings. So it's like trading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trading, like, I don't like this, but you do, but I like that of yours. Because I didn't really like chocolate then. And so, like, I didn't care that much about chocolate, but I liked things like this isn't a classic Halloween calico, but like jelly beans or fruity things like licorice, like red licorice, things like that. And so like it was like such a thing to get home and dump the loot and categorize that. And the other part of it that I remember that I think tapered off in my years of trick or treating is in the early years, like you had said, Eve and Lio, is like you might have gotten fruit,
Oh,
like an apple or an orange, something like that. And there was zero issue in that time of getting that. Like, no, there was no shenanigans. People weren't doing bad things. And also, I remember getting things that I really loved, like sticky popcorn balls that what might be, like wrapped in plastic. And somebody made it at home. And there, in the early years of me trick or treating, you would your parents would never say, nope, that's homemade, don't eat it. We only need fully wrapped thing. That consciousness wasn't there at all. And some of those, like in my family, we never made those sort of candy popcorn balls, and so those were always fun to get. And I know that sensibility isn't there right now. I never went outside of my neighborhood to a different neighborhood that had better candy. But I know that where I live now, it is. And I also wanted to reflect what you said also, Yolanda, about the community aspect. I've been thinking about that because they're like I live in a small town and with a small downtown area, and all of the shops will be open tonight and all of them will be doing candy. And so it's like a safe, let's go down to Main Street. Literally, it's called Main Street in downtown Hendersonville. And like it's just like so community, so in this cute little old downtown area. And never, I mean, I grew up in Los Angeles, like we didn't,
yeah.
it wasn't like that where I lived. And so I think it's adorable like that, where kids are going to the downtown neighborhood. And yeah, they're the stores, but it's still like everyone just on the street. I think it's sweet. I
Yeah.
also like the trunk or treat things.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know what it's like as a kid to do that, but where I lived before in California in the mountains, the like it was mountainous and bigger properties and windy roads with no sidewalks. And so in the small community within the community I lived, I think it was at a church often. And so then the cars would come into the church and people would have the back of their car open. So the kids were still trick or treating because they couldn't do that in their neighborhood
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it like it's too much walking, steep hill, driveways, but they worked around that. And I thought that was really sweet also, just a different variation of the creativity to still be able to come together.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, everything you're saying, it highlights again how interesting. Really never thought about it until us having this conversation this morning of how community driven Halloween really is. And it's funny, the trunk or treat and all that. I feel like that started up as I was coming out of trick or treating. Because when I was growing up again, in the 80s and in Massachusetts, I should say, I wasn't in California yet. We would just like go out in groups, like Ia said, and we would go to it was just all of our friends together, but the adults were so into it because they not only did they have decorated houses. I remember there was one house in the neighborhood that would create like a haunted house that we could go in, and it was like this scary thing. And think of that, like back then you could do that, whereas now there is no way kids are going into anybody's house, you know. There's just so many things that are different now. And then my mom, it's her favorite holiday. So she would always really try to scare the kids. It was hilarious to her. But on the back end, they got rewarded because she would get the best candy and she would give a handful. Like you didn't just get one piece, she would handful scoop after she scared you to death. Um, But in my
Keep
younger
them coming
years,
back for more.
yes, yes, like she gives the good stuff, but you're gonna be really scared. Um, I think when I was younger, my costumes were always like, whatever was at the stores that were like Target, but it wasn't Target, whatever we had. I don't even remember what the names of the stores were. So we had like a lot of the plastic masks that came out in the 80s, and they were like stuffy and
They stunk too, didn't
yes,
they?
you
They did
can't
not smell
breathe in
good.
those things. Like, it was like you would have some kind of draped plastic costume and then the mask um to match. So there was a lot of that. And then in my 20s and 30s, woo, that's where I had the sexy costumes. Yeah. Whew. But I think about that too, like in you and Kayla both know in San Diego in Hillcrest, Halloween is so amazing because they have a basically a parade. They have the costumes are beyond. It is I'm making myself want to go tonight. But they have like a whole thing, like the whole neighborhood is just an adult party and people really commit to the most amazing costumes. One of the things you said though reminded me of that time too. In the 80s is when they started saying like check the candy when the kids come home, make sure no one tampered with the candy, make sure nothing's in. I was like, what the heck are people putting in the candy? Luckily I never came across any of that, but you all made me remember too, I never participated because I thought it was disgusting. Even as a kid I was like, you are not. No.
I
Did
know
you
what you're
guys
gonna say.
bobbing for apples?
Yes.
Did anybody do that? You
I
can
probably
admit.
did, but I hated it.
So gross.
It's also not easy. Like it's almost impossible.
Yeah. Do they still do that? I would
I
think
don't
with all
know.
the germs
I
nowadays.
don't want to put my mouth into a bucket of water that everyone else has been
No.
in.
Did you bob for apples, Serena?
No, I've done
Did
pumpkin wrestling though.
you did what?
But no, I haven't fought for apples, but I did pumpkin wrestling.
What is pumpkin wrestling?
Um, this was in my early 20s though, but we took all the goop from the pumpkins. Like I used to have to Sure. We took all the goop from the pumpkins and we laid out a plastic mat in my friend's house. And I did pumpkin wrestling with one of my guy buddies. I used to be very competitive. So like of the girls, I actually was like one of the guys, even though I hung out with a group of guys, but yeah, so
So it's
pumpkin.
kind of like mud wrestling, but with pumpkin.
Yeah, and it was really gross because I have like weird food stuff usually anyways with like touching.
Yeah.
And like, I was so grossed out by the end because I had it like in my ears, I had it like everywhere. It was just yeah. But I would not do the apple bottom.
I never even heard of pumpkin wrestling, but you made me think I loved that where my other friends' moms, my mom didn't do this, but where they would take the pumpkin seeds and roast them and then we could eat the
Mm.
pumpkin seeds. Oh, that was one of my favorites. But the bobbing for apples, if anyone never saw or had to be invited to such a thing, it's literally this like giant bucket. What are those like metal
Metal.
buckets?
The
Like
big galvanized
Yeah.
tubs.
yeah,
Yes.
galvanized tubs. Yeah.
And they would fill it with water and then put in apples. And then the kids would take turns trying to grab an apple with their mouth. So you can imagine the level of saliva in the bucket. Like, oh,
Well,
I feel like
oh,
eventually there was an alternate with that where they were like hanging from strings somehow, and then you had to like bite them when they're hanging from strings. And that's equally hard to try to bite a
yeah.
round object that's, in motion on a string. But it was kind of like your dedicated apple, and it wasn't necessarily one
Shared.
that yeah, everyone's mouth was on, but also not sitting in water that everyone's mouth was in.
Yeah. Ugh, that is a terrible memory. You mentioned the candy trading, and I wanted to ask everyone about that too. Like, what were your favorite treats, and what containers did you all carry them in? Because you mentioned the pillowcase, and we had that too. But at some point around that time is when those plastic pumpkins became popular. And we all had them, but we were like, this doesn't hold crap. So we all wanted to use the pillowcase because you could get more candy. Yeah. What did you guys use? What was your favorite candy?
Tootsie
I
Rolls. Tootsie Rolls.
There
Mm.
used to be this candy called something daddy,
Sugar daddy.
sugar daddies. Was it on a it was on a stick?
Yeah,
Yes.
like a
That's it.
caramel.
Yeah, yeah. That used to be one of my favorite. That and payday candy bars. And what we would do with the we would dump them all out and then we would put them in like grocery bags because back then we didn't have plastic grocery bags, you had paper.
Um,
And so we each had our own. I was an only girl, so I had my own room, and you were really good at hiding your candy so that nobody, if you had siblings, nobody would come in and take your candy or eat out of it or whatever. And then throughout the time that you had it, however many weeks you had candy left, you would actually get to make money because people, if they ate theirs too fast, you could sell your candy.
like, first of all, sugar daddies, like if you got a sugar daddy, that was jackpot. That was like that house was really fancy if they gave you sugar daddies. And then remember sugar babies came out where they were just like
Hmm.
the
The
little
little
pellet
things.
kind
Yeah.
of things. Yeah. But Tootsie Rolls, I literally have a bag of them right over there, Holly. Like a giant, like 700 Tootsie Rolls came in the.
Is that what you're giving out, or is that just your own
No,
personal stash?
no, I ordered some because one day it just came to mind like, oh, I want some Tootsie Rolls. So I went to Amazon and I ordered them without even looking at what the count was, not even thinking. So I get this bag of 750 Tootsie Rolls in there. I don't think
Are
I
they the
ever
little
finished.
ones or
Yeah,
the
the
full
little ones.
size
No, no,
ones?
no, the little ones.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
more manageable.
yeah, no, 100%. What about you, Kate? What did you put candy in and what was your favorite?
Uh, I used to trick or treat with my sister, and we wanted to be cute, so we would never be caught with a pillowcase. So we
There
had
she go.
the
Doesn't go with
pumpkin
the
buckets.
princess
We
outfit.
didn't care how much candy it held. Um, but my favorite candy was always the fruit flavored Tootsie Rolls,
Uh,
but we weren't allowed to have them because they were twisted. So I was part of that era where we had to like go through our candy and we were trained to like what to look for. So we were allowed to do it on our own. And then my mom would come and check. So anything that was like twisted or wrapped, not like sealed, we'd have to like
mm.
discard. But also my favorite were the I don't know what they were called, but the round M&M kind of candies. They
Reese's?
were like, no, it was chocolate with a hard coating. Maybe
Not
Smarties.
M&Ms?
I think Smarties.
No, Smarties are like no, no,
Oh,
no.
Oh,
not
Smarties,
chocolate ones. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, no, they were great. Yeah, I gotta go find those now.
Skittles.
No, those don't
No,
have
they're
chocolate.
chocolate. They're
Oh,
chocolate. Hmm.
Were they like little pellets, like almost like
Yeah.
little BBs? Yeah,
Hmm.
they used to come in like if you bought them at the
Like a
store, they
tube.
came in a long thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those were great.
I can't remember what they were
So
called.
nostalgic.
I think it
Hmm.
starts with the S.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh man, now it's gonna drive me crazy. I remember those two. I like those two.
Hmm.
Oh, what about you, Rena?
So I think it was like the one time a year where I was allowed to have candy because my parents were extremely strict with food with me. Um, so I really liked this back then. Now it's very different, but back then I liked the sour candy. So like the Smarties, someone said, I think it was Holly said Smarties or someone. But I liked the Smarties. I remember Laffy Taffy, although I can't remember if they were smaller ones then or if they were the big ones, but occasionally I would get some of that. I liked Skittles, but yeah, it was all the sour stuff. And although I have always loved Whoppers, doesn't matter what age,
Oh, I love
for
Whoppers.
girls.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yummy ones.
At Halloween, that was the best too to get like the little fun size pack of Whoppers. And if someone gave you the little mini pack of Now and Laters,
Yeah.
oh, gold.
The strawberry ones.
Yes. It was like gold. It's so funny how, and we did too, my friends and I, we would trade, and luckily everybody did have very different taste. So it was like no problem, trading whatever you had. And then because I was the only child, my stash lasted forever. Like I had my kid, yeah, and I couldn't sell it to anybody. That was a good idea though. I wish I
That
would have
was
had
my
that.
question is like, whose parents let them free range on their candy and whose parents, like I have a memory of like, there was a certain amount we were allowed to kind of binge on that night. And then I feel like I could be collapsing this with my own parenting, though, I have to admit. there was a point in time where it's like it's still here, but it's like on top of the fridge
Mm,
because you weren't allowed to bring it to your room. You because you know parents didn't want to deal with OD sugar kids for, however long. And so it was like doled out, like you could have a piece a day. But there was always this threshold beyond which they said, no, you're not eating this at Christmas time. No, it's going in the trash. Like, no, you're not going to eat it now. And I don't even know if that's really like legit, but I just remember there was some threshold that, like, no, it's gone now.
that's so funny. No, my mom, no, my candy, my candy, she didn't care. And it's funny that you say about like the sugar high and kids bouncing off the walls. My mom was the aunt where everyone would come to our house and like jump up and down on the bed and she could care less. So yeah. However, I was not rambunctious in that way. So I think that's probably why she didn't restrict me because I didn't overindulge. I really was like I could have a piece of candy and be satisfied. Yeah, so I didn't have. Did any of you have rules on it?
We didn't have any rules. There was really no sugar high awareness or warnings about too much sugar when I was growing up. But we also it was not like a rule, but we just didn't eat a lot of candy. My mother didn't keep candy around a lot, but so Halloween was just that time. But I don't remember one of my brothers, he would go all out and binge and eat his quickly, but he was hyperactive anyway. So it
Yeah,
wasn't much difference in a behavior that I can remember. And I was quite a bit older than him, but there was no real awareness about too much sugar or food coloring or anything like that when I was going through that phase of trick or treat. And so you kind of self-monitored your
yeah,
candy. Yeah.
yeah,
Now I do remember with my son, there was a lot of awareness back then. And so it was more a thing of you could have X amount, you know, at certain for a certain period of time. But that would have been, yeah, he was in the 80s.
the
Yeah.
80s, that was a time. What a time to be alive. I always think about that whenever you see it's funny because right now a lot of the younger generation, I don't know which one, but they're into this whole Y2K thing is like early 2000s, like they are doing the clothing again and like they like the music and all of this kind of stuff. And I guess it would be similar to I think there was a blip of my generation where maybe we might have been interested in like the 70s disco and like this kind of thing or Motown. I guess it would be the same as that. But the 80s, oh man, that was some good music. That was like, oh, we would have to do a whole nother
It was
conversation
okay. The
about it.
60s were the best music.
Oh, is that what it was?
And the
The
early
60s.
70s.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what I go back to nostalgically
The
also.
70s. Man,
Yeah.
I grew up with
And
like
60s
all
based
of,
on what my parents were listening to at home.
yeah,
Late
that's what it
60s, early
was.
70s. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom, the record collection was real. But man, the 80s were everything. The three of us will have to have a whole
Well,
show about
yeah,
the
and
80s.
but also the 80s was also, which I remember in Halloween costumes, not that I was wearing because I was, like I was my first two sons were born in the 80s, so like I wasn't doing this, but like, like the whole Jane Fonda leotard with the leg warmers and the
Oh yeah.
headband, and I remember younger girls kind of emulating that, but also with like really bright neon colors and like that was definitely an 80s thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Get in shape, girl. It was that.
It's the Jane Fonda era.
Yeah, but that was even at the toy store, like the Get in
Yeah.
Shape girl packages and yeah, and then Madonna, all the things. Oh my gosh. But anyway, in other news, I wanted to make sure because I do want to talk about also share with everyone what you all have coming up on the podcast and the masterclass weekend that's coming up. But before we get into that, I'm curious about your favorite horror movies. What was like the really popular ones when you were growing up? And do you have any ghost stories?
Well,
Well,
I'll start off.
okay.
I have never liked and still don't like scary movies, period, end of subject. I don't watch them.
Uh-huh.
And I just like because they scare me too much. Like I'll hear every bump in the night. I live alone. I won't want to drive home and, open up my garage at night. And it's like, and I've never liked them. I do remember, this is definitely dating me. Not that the whole conversation isn't, but going to see The Exorcist in the theater.
Oh no.
And I had gone with my boyfriend, so I was, a high school teenager, and we went to probably a 10 or 11 o'clock showing of it and came home, and everyone in my family was asleep when he dropped me off. And the whole house was pitch black, like nobody left a light on for me. And like that was the pinnacle of horror movies back in the day. So I won't say I've never seen any,
Mhm.
but just like, yeah, I've never been a horror movie person, and I'm still not. So I'm not a good one to contribute.
Okay. I have never seen that movie to this day, but I have
You
seen
don't want
horror
to see
movies.
that
Yeah,
movie.
no,
No, it's not
just
a
from the
good vibe.
previews of it, I know
No.
I can't do that one. That's too much. What about you, Rena?
Wait, so I'm sorry. It was the question of horror movies, and what was the second part of that thing?
Horror movies, and we'll do ghost stories after. But what about your
Oh,
favorite
that's,
horror
I was
movies?
like trying to retain the other info too, and I like lost it. I'm like, I can't remember which set. No, horror movies, I'm kind of the same as Holly. Growing up, it was the Jason and Freddy Krueger and all that, and I didn't like it when my cousins dressed up like that stuff, and so I did not have any interest in seeing the horror movies. For me, I did go through a phase, probably teens or something, where I did like the psychological thrillers, so like in the Mouth of Madness kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I've never really been like one for, I don't like gore or anything. And then my daughter, my oldest, went through a phase where she liked horror, but I refused to watch anything that was like, I would only watch like Us or something that was kind of like, you know, like the psychological stuff. But even now I'm like, ah. So, yeah, I don't like those.
This is interesting. So like the psychological thrillers are more scary to me. Things that seem more likely that would happen in real life, those are scarier to me than like Freddy Krueger. So like growing up for me, Freddy Krueger was so popular then, but also some of us will remember, probably not Kayla, Blockbuster Video was it, right? So we didn't have streaming services. You go to Blockbuster Video and get all the VHS tapes for the weekend. So like on Fridays, my mom would take me to Blockbuster and I would get, whatever I wanted to watch on the weekend. And she would let me get anything. So I did. Freddy Krueger, I thought he was hilarious.
Oh,
But I had a limit. So like I never watched any of the Jasons. I didn't watch anything that seemed really like possession or you've gone too far. I could not. Freddy was not fun. I mean, not scary to me. One time I rented Children of the Corn. To this day, if I hear the name Malachi, I'm just like, God. So yeah, I have some memories of some horror movies, but I do have a limit. And now I don't watch anything scary, but definitely the psychological thrillers or things where people could be real or like on Netflix right now, there's a lot of like documentaries about older like serial killers and this stuff. I'm like, nah, I'm good. No, no. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, and Poltergeist. Remember that?
yeah. I
You
remember
didn't watch that?
you guys, the little tiny lady.
Yeah, Carol Ann.
Yeah,
What?
watched her in Teen Witch. I didn't realize she was in Teen Witch, and I watched that for like the first time in years, and I was like, oh my gosh.
That is so fun. Yeah, there were like a lot of I guess they call them like cult classics from the
Mhm.
80s that were horror movies. Yeah. What about UK? Did you watch horror?
Yeah, so I used to go over to my aunt's house with my sister, and we had a lot of older cousins. So we were always watching movies that were way beyond our limit. Like Candyman was
Oh, yes,
pretty
Candy.
scary as a younger kid. Um, One I actually enjoyed though was The Ring. I love the story.
Oh,
It was I
yeah.
only watched it once. I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but that one experience was pretty good. And the scariest, I don't know if it's considered a horror movie, but I remember watching this with my sister and we were just like screaming into the pillow the whole time. But Final Destination, the first one,
I never saw
that was like insane. So Yeah, that one was
Mm-mm.
creepy.
But the one you said, The Ring, I saw that in a movie theater and I had my eyes covered most of the time
Hmm.
because the character, the main, was so creepy. Like, I don't, ooh, no, I couldn't do that. But the other one you said, I forgot what you said. That was a really good one. Yeah.
Candyman. Yeah, that
Candyman.
was great.
Yes, that was a good one. Now I think about it, I'm like, God, I do have a big horror movie. Like, I've watched a lot actually. How about you, Ia?
Growing up, I wasn't allowed to watch that kind of stuff because we lived in a funeral home.
Hmm.
And but I remember spending the night with one of my cousins, and she was allowed to watch them. So I was just curious. So we watched, I can't even remember the name of the movie, but that thing scared me so bad. It was insane. So the when I did go home, I was still afraid of it, but I couldn't tell my mother that I was afraid, and I slept in a room by myself because I wasn't supposed to be watching it anyway.
Yeah.
So that was the worst part, and that movie haunted me for years, years,
Whoa.
years, because it was, like I said, I hadn't seen anything like that. I can't remember what we went to see, but it was at the theater. Um, but at my cousin's house, I slept with her and was just there for 2 nights, right? It was just a weekend. But the memory of that and the feeling of it stayed with me for a long time. And then I remember going forward into adulthood when The Exorcist came out. Somebody gave me the book and said, "Oh, you should read this book." And I started reading this book, like, "Oh no, we're not doing this," whatever kind of thing. So then I had a group of friends, and they were saying when it came into the movies, they were trying to convince me to go to the movies to see The Exorcist at midnight.
Oh no.
And I said, "You guys are crazy. I am not doing that." And at that time, I had gone away and I had come back home and I was staying with my parents. They still had the funeral home. And I said, "If you think I'm going to see something like that at midnight, you are insane." So they said, "Well, we don't want to go without you." I said, "Well, I'm not going at midnight." So we went the next day and we went in the afternoon. When we came out of that movie, they were so glad that I would not go with them at midnight. So I don't do scary stuff. Now, I like psychological thrillers and the slash and kill movies. That stuff that
Yeah, it's a
to me,
lot.
that's not horror. That's just gore to me anyway. I don't watch those either. But the true scary stuff, no, I don't do those. But the psychological, as long as they're not slashing throats and all that kind of stuff, some of that I like. But for the most part, that stuff is to me too real.
Yeah.
So I don't really deal with it.
It's
So.
funny you say about the funeral home because, I've told you my mom also worked in the funeral business and her
Mhm.
father was a funeral director. Um, but she, again, was like the aunt that took all the kids to go see Chainsaw Massacre and got in trouble by all my aunts that she, she took them to go see it. Oh my God. But you just reminded me too, another classic was The Shining. Did everybody see The Shining?
I did actually see that one.
Yes, that's a classic.
Red
Oh,
Rum. Yeah.
Red Rum. Oh,
With the labyrinth outside
yeah.
there.
Oh man, there were some. Now I think about it, and not gory like you're saying. I don't like. That's why I never watched the what was his name, Michael Myers, or those kinds of things. Like, no, I wasn't interested. Um, but there are some. Like the story was good, like very interesting stories. I don't know. It's
Can
all
I
kind of
mention
scary.
one?
Yeah.
I just realized we didn't even mention it. And to me, it was a pivotal time in the late 90s, mid 90s. But when Blair Witch first came out,
Oh yes.
everyone thought it was real. I thought it was real, and I had gone and seen it, and I was like scared, so scared leaving the place. But yeah, I remember there was like a long period of time when everyone thought that that was an actual real movie because of how it was filmed.
I think they filmed that. I think the people who did that were from Rancho Bernardo, Holly.
Oh, really?
I think so, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, these people in San Diego. Um, but yeah, I never went to see that. Mm-mm. I didn't, but I remember it was like a phenomenon. But do you guys do haunted houses?
I don't like them.
Nobody? Me neither. I did one time and I ran through like for my life. And then when I came out, it was like I couldn't breathe and I never went in one.
I
out for
don't like
that.
to be scared. Like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to choose to be
Yeah.
scared. You know,
Mm,
things can be scary in life just because life is happening.
yeah.
But for me personally, I guess maybe I'm just too sensitive, but like, you want me to go in there knowing that people are going to scare me for the next half an hour or something? Why? I'll just wait here. You tell me how it is when you get out.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I wouldn't do it now. But as a kid, you're kind of like, oh, I gotta go see. Horrible. Because that was the time when it was like Freddie and Jason and all those. So that's who was in the house chasing you for your life. It was way too much. But anyway, any plans for Halloween this year? Anyone doing anything?
No.
No?
I typically don't, but now that, I have two grandkids here and they're not, they're still 3 and 1-ish, but they're almost 2 and 4. And my son has spent a huge amount of time. They're really a boy and a girl, and they're really into Thomas the Tank trains.
Mhm.
So my son has made beautiful costumes for them to wear for that. So after this, which is why I'm dressed up, I'm going to go and do that and be with them and walk a little bit of their neighborhood. And then I am going to a Halloween party tonight that's
Oh,
local.
fun.
But I don't normally. Normally, I'm home quietly by myself.
Well, send pictures. Take a lot of good pictures and share with us. Yeah. What about you, Kay? Are you doing anything tonight?
I'm going to a witch party. So it's like an annual thing. It's kind of fun.
Do you guys do
It's
anything?
most of those people, they don't really like, they're not really into that kind of stuff outside of the holiday, but it's just, they just dress up and kind of have fun. And it's like that theme. So
We'll still take a lot of
yeah.
pictures. Share with us. What about you, Serena? You have some kids.
Yes, I have some kids. We're driving a little further north than our area, and we're spending the weekend there and taking them trick or treating. And I'm excited to take them there so that they have the trick or treating experience because where I live, it's just too damn hot. And I actually have watched the makeup melt off not my youngest, my oldest's face when she was younger.
Wow.
But anyway, so where we're going, I'm really excited for multiple reasons for that, but also I've really been connecting with the land there and I'm really trying to put all my energy towards moving there. So I'm hoping that it happens. It's
Wow.
in the land quite strongly. So
Interesting. Well, I hope you have fun. I am going to, for the last couple of years on Halloween, I always like to test the whole thinning of the veil theory. So I tend to do some kind of something meditative just to see, like, does it feel thinner tonight? Like, what is it that I recognize or come into, um, what is it I recognize, basically? So I'll do something like that, but that's it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not dressing up. I hope I get a second win one day and want to go back and party and do Hillcrest and all the things. That would be so much fun.
Oh,
Ifamayo, you're staying in?
masquerade party. Yes, my grandson has outgrown that, even though he and his dad sometimes there are a lot of really big community Halloween parties that go happen here. I live in
Yeah,
South Florida. So some communities they do street parties and costumed, things, and it's for adults.
yeah.
So because my grandson is 17. So sometimes they'll go and do that. I don't even know if they're going because I was out of town. But when my grandson was younger, I used to have fun, helping him plan what he was going to do and that kind of thing. But not myself, not going anywhere. I'll be right here.
Oh, you know what else you just reminded me of? In San Diego, Day of the Dead is really big. I mean, we're right next door
Mhm.
to Mexico. Day of the Dead is huge here, and I remember one year where I did this whole deep dive research on Halloween and Day of the Dead came up and All Saints Day and all of these things. Speaking of which, if you want to know about the history of Halloween, go to Awakening Airwaves. You're already on the channel, but look for Serena's most recent episode from this month. She did a deep dive about the history of Halloween. It's really fascinating. So you can watch that. I'll put it in the show description, actually, the link. But do any of you do anything related to that? Do you do any ancestral like veneration, or do you do anything like that around this time of year?
Around this time of year, I always do a lot of ancestral because during the month of October and November, we focus on ancestor veneration. So that's pretty much what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you do altars or?
Altars, in the faith that I practice, you have a permanent ancestral altar
Mhm.
and you do a lot of ceremonies around ancestry, getting together with other people and sharing ancestral history and stories, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the time of year. We do it all year, but this time of year was when we focus on it a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know what? You just reminded me. I got evidence, we'll say, of the thinning of the veil just yesterday. But so my biological father passed away when I was like 2. I have no memory of him at all. But maybe about a week ago, I had this like kind of awareness of his presence, which again never happens, never, never, never. So that was really interesting to me. But last night I was in the alchemy circle and we were talking about something, and I said his name, but accidentally. Like I meant to say something else, but I said his name. And I was like, oh my God, why did I say that? It was so weird. And then when we got out of the alchemy circle, I had an email from one of his sisters that had pictures of him. And I was like remembering him. Yeah, because his birthday was like October 13th or something. But she sent this email with all these pictures of him. I was like, how weird that I said his name like just randomly during the class. Yeah. So maybe that's my thinning of the veil evidence.
Yeah.
Anybody else do anything for this time of year? Any kind of practices?
So I'll share. I don't do anything consistently, but probably about 2 years ago, I started doing some stuff as far as trying to connect with my aunties that have passed. But I find that I don't really need to do it like this time of year consistently, and that's why I say not consistent. But I have a permanent little area off in the corner of my room where I have a very special photo album that my mom made me
Mhm.
of my family and my aunties and my grandparents that had passed. So for me, that's kind of like just a special area for when I'm wanting to connect or whatever. But
Yeah.
I find that I don't know. Like I said, I not necessarily like this time of year particularly. It's just kind of like as it I feel called to it, if that makes sense. And there's one
Yeah.
in particular, she's the only one that's come in so strongly since the passing of all my aunties that she always kind of comes in for me. And so yeah.
Well, one thing, if anyone wants to kind of play with it, one thing I recognize is when I first started doing it intentionally on Halloween to see, like, do I notice more of a presence? I was very specific about who I wanted to connect to, family wise. And then over the last couple of years, I leave it more to any of my family, again, specific to my family, any family members that want to connect with me. And it's an interesting thing because you might be surprised at who actually comes through that you may not have even thought to say, do you want to come to my space or tell me something or anything like that. So it's a really cool thing too. What about you, Kay? Anything?
No, not normally, but having this conversation, I'm maybe, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do it with the witches tonight. You're like, everybody gather around, come around the cauldron. Let's let's have a ritual. Well, I'm glad that we got to talk about Halloween. I thought, especially after we got together in that meeting and EA Falayo told us about the 3 nights that she had, I was like, this is fascinating, especially because we all have different backgrounds and ages and where we grew up. It's just really cool hearing the different Halloween experiences. I wasn't going to ask this, but it's coming up to say, do any of you have like tips or recommendations for people in celebration tonight? Aside from, be safe, of course. Be safe out there, have fun out there.
That's an interesting question. I would say if you know that you're sensitive to spiritual psychic energies and that kind of thing, make sure you wear your protections,
Yeah.
and are aware and not ignore things that may be happening around you, and to make sure that you are prepared to potentially do some cleansing when you come back in,
Oh, yeah.
from whatever you're participating in. And if you, same thing with your children, if you have children, if you already know that they are sensitives as well, or and if you're not sure, be mindful, watch their behaviors and cleanse them regardless. That would be what I would say.
That's some great advice. I'm glad I asked. That is-
I think people get caught up in the fun of it
Yeah.
and they forget about the seriousness of what energy is.
Yeah.
And also, unfortunately, we have people in the community that go out and experiment with what they can do
Yeah.
and what they can project out there just to see their people's reactions. And so, I've been, um, exposed to those kind of things in the past, so I always think of it.
Yeah.
So just because you're having fun doesn't mean you don't need to be aware.
Yeah. Oh, that is good. That is good. I'm gonna have to go back, listen, and list what you just said for advice. Yeah. Anyone else? Any
I
thoughts?
oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to second that about protecting yourself and your energy. I didn't realize, but yesterday, I didn't realize why anyway, but yesterday I was at the grocery store and I felt so energetically vulnerable and just like super sensitive. And I was like, wow, I never thought I needed so much protection at Ralph's, you know? So yeah, just for sure protecting yourself, not only on the day, but even like before and after that time is very like opening.
Yeah. That's again good advice. Oh, I'm so glad. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
I was gonna say, and for the protecting, like if anybody has Florida water, or if you have a metaphysical shop near you or anything, Florida water is portable, so you could put in a spray bottle and bring it with you. But that's not my main chore. I was gonna say, if for those that are curious and wanting to, kind of play around with connecting and everything else, just remember to always close things up when you are done. I think that's very important because early on, that was not something that I shouldn't say taught because I kind of taught myself just like reading books and playing around, but I never took serious, I guess. And you leave yourself vulnerable energetically, and you also don't want to invite things into your space. So creating a sacred space before you do anything and really cleansing it, cleansing yourself, go ahead, set the intention, do your action piece of however you're trying to do or what you're trying to do, whether it's connecting with the ancestors, whatever. And then making sure that you close it out too. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. I will add one thing to that. If you don't have Florida water, and since this is now and maybe you don't have time to find it, salt water,
Yeah.
yeah, use salt, any kind of salt.
Yeah. I was thinking, I know there are some people too who make their own Florida water, which can be nice. If you want to take the time to do it, you could look it up online and be very intentional about creating your own. But yeah, God, there's so many great tips. Oh, anything coming up for you, Holly, that you want to share?
I mean, I would say ditto to absolutely everything that's said here. And if you can't think of anything else, if you have it on hand, carry selenite with you.
Mm, look at all these
It
good tips.
just automatically keeps everything cleansed naturally. Throw it in your kid's pocket. If you have a little piece of selenite around, or if you have a selenite wand, just do an easy cleansing and clearing with that. It's really amazing about how simple and powerful selenite is for that.
You
Yeah.
know, you just made me think too. I wonder if nowadays people put those little air tags on their kids going out for Halloween. Yeah, because I've seen now they create like shoes where like children's shoes now where you can hide the air tags inside the shoes. They have like all of these ways of tracking them now.
Isn't
Oh,
Have
that
you seen that?
a great but absolutely horrifying idea that we even had to do
Yes, that
that?
we're in these kind of times. Yeah, it's terrible, but it's fascinating that, yeah, that's what people are doing now. I forgot about that. They're like literally tracking kids now with these little devices. Yeah, were you gonna say something?
oh, I was just gonna say, and if all else fails, and to prevent anything, make sure you're doing your Reiki your kids.
Yes, yes. Do your Reiki 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, but those are
Strengthen that
really
aura
great
before you
tips.
step out there.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, like, while everything you all suggested is great for tonight, especially with the type of energies that are, being conjured on this day, it is really good, everything that you said, to practice just daily. Like, part of your regular practice being very mindful and present with your energy and doing what you can, what you feel called to do in terms of your practice of keeping your own space very clean and being very mindful of what you choose to attune to and align with and all of these kinds of things. So, speaking of that, I think I could say we all think it's really beneficial, even because of our own paths. We've all studied, we still study, we all practice. And so we really understand the value of sharing what we learn and being able to pass on what has been most beneficial to us in these sorts of things. And we all have, you know, different interests, which is why I love Awakening Airwaves. You get a little bit of everything. So, because of that, we are very excited that we're going to have a masterclass weekend, November 21st through the 23rd. Everyone except our resident astrologer, who, by the way, Erin, her first episode airs tomorrow, so you can get that energy update for November. I will post that as, of course, but make sure you tune into her episode tomorrow for your November forecast. She does a forecast for all 12 signs. But for the masterclass weekend, there are 9 classes. So, and again, it's a variety. We have Akashic Records, we have sound healing, we have Reiki for very specific uses. So, could you tell us just a little bit about what you will be offering on the weekend, so people can have an idea of what they'll be guided to practice as well? Serena, can you start us off?
So I'm going to be offering sound and the power of sound and how we can use it in our life. So not just using ourself, our actual vessel as an instrument to heal ourselves, but other instruments outside of ourselves, our tools from our spiritual toolbox. Um, but I'll also be going through the history of sound, which is really intriguing to get into. I think it's very helpful to understand how so much of the history, no matter where you're at, has this very potent piece of using music for healing, using the voice for healing, using these instruments for healing. And so I'll be sharing about that. And then we'll also be getting into things like creating your own sacred space, setting the intention when you do sound baths and doing these different things, because the intention piece is so huge. And I think a lot of times that gets overlooked. So yeah, it'll be a really fun class, lots to learn, lots to dive into. Yeah.
Well, I just want to add, because I saw what her presentation is, and it really is fascinating. One of the things too that's really cool about it, I think, will benefit a lot of people, is she also goes through the consideration of how to design a sound healing session based on the instruments, the sounds, and what they all do, how we interact with these different frequencies and the different resonance of them. So I thought that was really cool too. So, yes, you will get that from Serena. And then, Kay, what are you and Rozzy doing?
We will be talking about confidence and how to just embody confidence with your practice. A lot of people get in their heads or have kind of an imposter syndrome. So, just really how to step into you and what you have to offer and offer it confidently.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a big one for practitioners. New, old, seasoned, it doesn't matter on the scale. It is a really big one. So, that's exciting too. How about you, Holly?
I'm going to be offering everyone a peek into using the Akashic Records into this idea that you actually can tap into the Akashic Records, not just for past stuff like past lives and resolving things in the past, but I love using the Akashic Records to really tap into the energy of our vision and our future potential and literally be able to receive guidance from your Akashic Records on how to make the positive soul aligned steps towards it. So we don't always have to be digging in the dirt of our past, and we can also create change by having this soul aligned wisdom, but with some guidance, not just visionary, but like, okay, these are the next steps to take, and something that people can use, really every day, every week after that. And so everyone will have their own experience and their own records, feeling that and discovering that.
I just want to emphasize too, one, she's an incredible Akashic Records teacher and reader, but I just want to make sure people know you don't have to be psychic to access your records and really truly, like leave any of the doubt at the door and just be open to the like possibility of like, what if I experience something and come and experience it? Because I remember the first time I did an Akashic Records class, I was blown away by the experience I had. Although I had no expectations, I really didn't know what I was getting into, but it was a really cool experience. So I just say that to say, don't worry, don't think like you have to be a certain level of anything. It's open to everyone, and you do get better as you practice. But yeah, so
Yeah,
come,
everyone has, I mean, it's your soul's history. So,
yeah,
really, when we look at it from that lens,
yes,
of course, you have the right to access this information. And
yeah,
as Yolanda said, we might need to practice to build our muscles, but it's not a question of spiritual worthiness. If you have a desire, you have the ability to be there and try it out. And it is so much fun to move forward, not just only looking backward, but also the other side of that of like, how can I move forward? What can I do today, this week,
hmm,
that I know takes me in meaningful ways towards what I'm dreaming about in my life?
yes, yes. Ooh,
I mean, that's change also, right?
yeah. And this is, I mean, just so far of what we've heard, it's only three, and then EA Falio is going to be the fourth. But again, there are nine different classes. So you don't want to miss it. You can come live, it's going to be live, but there'll also be recordings. So if you do come, you can watch the recordings at your own convenience. And then Ifalayo, I also had the pleasure of getting kind of a peek at what she will be offering, which I'll tell you my thoughts after she shares. But could you tell us a bit about what it is that you will be sharing?
Yes, I'll be sharing about Reiki, elements of Reiki as spirituality, and specifically for people of different neurotypes.
Mhm,
That's one of my things. My background is in special education. I had worked with people of all different functioning levels, both mentally, emotionally, and physically. And my grandson is on the spectrum. And so one of my things is making sure that everybody can be included. We're all human beings first, and we all have something very unique about ourselves. Many of us have learned to compensate for some differences and fit into different aspects of society, and exclusion is just not acceptable to me. There's
yeah.
always a way for everyone to be included. So I like helping people to see how you can include people of different ages, but also people that have different modes of learning. So that's what we'll be talking about.
Yeah, and I want to say that was one of the things I think is very powerful, not just for practitioners. I would say practitioners of any practice, based on what I've seen that you've, shared around this work anyway, but just people in general. I think will get a lot from what it is that you share because it brings a lot of consideration to our overall communication. But you give some really great um, tips about how we can be more clear and understanding and inclusive. And so, yeah, you're going to enjoy that too.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to put the link, of course, to the mastery weekend down in the show description. But I have to say, it has been so much fun. It's only been since June. Awakening Airways just launched in June. So we haven't even had our 1 year anniversary yet. And it's been so much fun. And for anyone, if this is your first time joining with us, be sure to subscribe to the channel and go back and watch the archives. You can watch here on YouTube or you can listen on your favorite podcast platform. But there are some good podcast. I mean, you learn from every episode. And that was really the point. So, last thing, final spinal. Rena, could you tell everybody what your podcast is about? What's your next episode coming up?
Yeah, conscious consumption. Um, So the episode is all about finding tangible ways to really apply certain techniques that are around energy, but to your life to help support you in life.
Yeah.
So I always say, taking you from the passenger seat. So you're not just like letting life hit you, but actually really driving and being in the driver's seat of your life. And then I have, so this next episode, as you say, I have two episodes I'm kind of planning at the same time. So I'm trying to figure out which one's going first because I'm interviewing one of my teachers right now. And so I'm trying to figure out which one I'm putting first.
Okay.
But we'll be sharing a little bit also about the Reiki class summit weekend. And I will also be sharing a little bit about my midnight margaritas that I have going on right now, which is one of my intuitive card readings offerings that I have for this time of year. So yeah.
Ooh, Midnight Margaritas. I like the title. Very
Yes.
cool. And I'll of everyone on this channel, like if you're watching us on YouTube, every podcast on Awakening Airways has a playlist. So you can click on their playlist and just, what do we call it now? Binge. Binge all the episodes for every show. Yeah. How about you, Kay? What has been most recent on your podcast and what does it tend to be about?
So we just talk about kind of our journey on this path and the ups and downs and things we learn even in real time, things that we come across now. Um, this next episode will be in November, so we're talking about the power of gratitude and how it kind of transforms everything when you get into that flow of being grateful.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that only because I know a lot of people will say that.
Hmm.
This is true of this whole realm, I think. We hear a lot of things, but people rarely break it down
Yeah.
and really make it understandable, practical. How does this really work? So I'm excited to hear that. Thank you,
Yeah,
Linda.
we get really tactical too and have a lot of like tools to kind of help you do that too. So
That's why I say you better
Mhm.
start listening. You're going to learn a lot. And what about you, Holly?
Well, I actually had on my calendar to do gratitude, but I pivoted based on my comment to you yesterday that I'm actually going to look at the idea of what we think of as karmic blocks and what do we feel like we have in our past, particularly, and this could be ancestral patterns
Yeah.
that aren't serving us, as well as past life patterns, and really talking about it really through the lens, of course, of the Akashic records, but the idea of how do we release them? Because I have a foundational belief, which I'll talk about more, is we actually don't have blocks. And I know that's a little
Ooh.
controversial, but I actually believe we have an experience of blocks, but we're not actually blocked. And so when we reframe it and we learn to work with it differently, even the way we think of it,
Yeah.
and then discover that where everything began, it was actually beautiful and right. And when we discover that, the energy naturally transforms. So I'm going to talk about that through the Akashic lens and how we can create that sustaining change so we don't feel that we're carrying a bag of rocks around anymore.
I mean, the gold that is Awakening Airwaves. So many great teachings. And Ifalayo, could you please tell us about your podcast and what you all have been talking about recently or plan to?
Sure. With Wisdom of the Elders, our next topic is going to be Reiki spirit guides and the difference between those who work with guides and those who do not, and the whys and what fors, and all the different ways that people try to connect with their guides, and whether that is something you want to do or not. So,
Ooh, that's a good one, especially because in the Reiki community, there is such a split around that. So
yeah.
this is, now that I say that, I noticed that you two do really well of bridging the gap between the varying points of view within the community. So
Thank you.
that's very
And
helpful.
you know what works with that is that because our experiences are very similar, but then there's so much, difference there
Yeah.
because, the last thing we were talking about is the distance healing. We both we're taught the same way, but we approach it totally differently. And
Yes.
then the same thing is true with the spirit guides. So it's going to be interesting because we both approach it from a different place.
Look at
Mm.
that. Ooh. I get so excited. All right. So, everyone, again, there's obviously a lot to learn. And that really was, our hope, that everyone would have access to some great information, but also from people who are not just teachers, but practitioners and are learning through real life experience. So, it makes it that much more invaluable. So, follow Awakening Airwaves and watch all of the podcasts. Join us for the masterclass weekend. And if you had fun with us today, be sure to like the video, share it all over the place. Yeah, I just want to say thank you again. We don't plan to come back together until I think New Year's Eve, maybe something like that, as a group. So if you want to join us live again, put that on your calendar. It'll be at the same time, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. Is that right? Yeah. And then 5 p.m. in the UK for New Year's Eve. We will have another discussion all about the energies that we're moving out of and what we will be moving into. So you can join us for that. Other than that, Awakening Airwaves has new episodes every Wednesday and Friday. So, again, if you follow the show or the podcast, you will always be alerted when new episodes come out. And be sure
And
to check
Saturday
Saturday.
with Erin.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. And Erin's
Oh,
first episode is tomorrow. So she comes out really on the first of every month, so that we
okay.
can all have the full spectrum of what the energy of the month will be and our
Love that.
our horoscopes by sign. Because what if something's happening on the first? We don't know, right? But yeah, it's a really great episode. So be sure to check that out. Any last words before we go, ladies?
Happy Halloween.
Happy
Yeah.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, and be sure to check in the show notes for all of the great tips of how you can support yourself energetically tonight. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm. And then I just have to get us off of YouTube. I don't know how.